If you're looking at this painting and you know that it is not finished, there's a number of reasons as to why that is. And those reasons can be found in the 7 Principles of Art. It's obvious with this one that it's not done. And that's because it doesn't have balance, it doesn't have contrast, doesn't have emphasis. It lacks those basic principles that exist in a painting that we find satisfying. So what I'm going to aim to do with my Tombow marker, it's a water-soluble marker, is to look at ways to apply some of the principles of art and see if I can pull this painting together. So one of the principles is contrast. Adding a black marker to these light tones is going to instantly create contrast. So I've got that one covered quite quickly. One of the other principles of art is emphasis. It is totally lacking in emphasis. So I'm going to start by putting in some detail here, and it might function as emphasis. So if you look at it now, I've instantly created, with a few short marks, a focal point. So somewhere for you to look, something that makes the rest of it make sense. Another principle of art is unity. Now, I get unity in my colour by using the same colours over the painting. This has got 2 layers, an underpainting which has the same colours as the top layer. So there's a pink, a green and a blue, and on the first layer, and then on the second layer a pink, a green, a blue. So in that way I get unity. That's just colour unity, that's not really compositional unity. But what I'm going to do is put in some marks with my Tombow marker and then do some enjoyable details to this lovely little poppy. How much detail? Now there's a question that's so hard to answer. How will I know when I've added enough detail? And it's like knowing when you've finished any project. There's yellow over here on my palette, and I'm going to release some of that black using this yellow. It's a little mixture of quinacridone gold and aureolin yellow, so 2 really beautifully transparent colours. And I'm going to touch the black and touch the black and touch the black and see if I can just make that black release in a pretty way. And now I'm going to switch to water and wash it out to nothing. Just water up here, so it's pretty much just watery. It's just water, and now you can see the black releasing into the water. I love that beautiful soft look. And now I'm going to get hard lines and soft lines. That's a lovely way in which you can create a type of balance in your paintings. I'm going to just offload that one for a moment and go in with a much smaller brush and release some internal lines, just to increase that idea of the soft edge and the hard edge. I'm going to release that one, and this little beauty comes down here, and I'm just going to release it. So along this line, I'm going to release one side, and then to make it interesting, I'll release the other side. Will these work as great ideas? I don't know. Every single time I sit down to be creative, it's just an opportunity to play and come up with an idea and experiment with it. It's one of the things that I love to say to students, and that is, if you're asking the question, what happens if, then just go experiment with exactly that question. It's such a wonderful thing to discover. If you've got the question, then you've thought of something original, or you've thought of something that you're going to play with anyway. I'm going to go soft in there into those little stamen and see if I can keep that soft in there and soft into there. I'm constantly washing my brush because that black marker is dissolving and producing soft marks. There's a little gap here. I think I will just deal with that by softening down a little bit. And it needs a little more here, I think. I think it needs a little more colour down the bottom. It's lovely and wet. I'm going to dump that brush and come in with some of the beautiful blue, which was cobalt. I'm going to mix up a lovely batch just here of cobalt. Cobalt is a transparent blue, so I'm going to come in and see if I can create a little bit of balance here, because I feel like the flower was floating, but not in a way that I found satisfying. The other thing I love to say to students is there somewhere in the painting that your eye is drawn to, and it's drawn to it in a way that makes you think something's wrong? And that's what was going on here. There was absolutely no movement. So I've established this and I've gone smaller as I've gone up the page. I'm going to go back in and add some more of that beautiful blue, because I enjoyed it coming in here and then traveling up there. So I think I'll bring it in, but not off to the edge with intensity, and just bring it back into the flower. I'm going to switch to a water brush and soften off this colour over here. Soften all of this, all of this. Okay, there's a little lump here of, there was a little lump of cobalt. All right, that's a little better. I've kept a tiny bit of interest down here with some hard lines. Everything else is soft. The blue is hopefully leading me into it. And now that I've gotten to this point here, I can feel so desperately that I want to put in some blue inside the flower. So I'm just dropping in cobalt into the inside. Get some lovely wet in wet, I hope. Little marks. And it just needs a tiny bit of tone just here as well. Tiniest bit. I'm going to switch to magenta just to not have pure cobalt just there. Back into this mix just to bring it up a little. Just a little. And then just water to suggest these lines are giving it form, because it's kind of a bowlish shape, the bottom of the poppy, and now I'm finding them a bit distracting, so I'm softening them. I quite like doing all that at once. So now there's a predominance of blue with some beautiful little pink highlights there. It's actually quinacridone magenta, but I feel like that definitely needs to be here. It definitely is, finishing a painting is a lot to do with intuition. But that intuition is based on the fundamentals of art. So hopefully what I've done here is create a painting that was way more interesting. That was using a Tombow marker. It's quite lovely. Into this pinky colour, this, as I mentioned, it's actually quinacridone magenta. I'm just getting yellow and dragging it out. I'm washing it each time because I'm dipping straight into my puddle of aureole and yellow. Just going to take those up and up. Ooh, am I getting a bit busy? There's a big, beautiful pink section there that I want to desperately interrupt. And I'm going to leave it as a lovely area of rest. Okay, I'm going to do a bit of tipping. It's one of the easiest things that you can do in watercolour is tip your page, get it really wet, drop in colour and tip your page up, and these areas where there's no water will resist all of the paint. This is going around the flower, so I'm going to tip it again so that it connects. I'm going to tip it again so it connects with the flower. I don't want things looking like they're going around it. That's better. And down here, those colours have moved together in such a pretty way. I'm now going to leave it on this angle. I'm just leaning it on my water jar because that's exactly the angle I want. I'm going to get a dryer and see if I can finish it and resolve it. So it has gold and silver and two types of black. So I'm going to be very gentle with them because they're woodless. But I wondered if this beautiful metallic silver needs to be lovely and dry in order for me to put on such a high point. Whether this, oh yeah, look at that, lovely. And then put on some dots. Into that, I'm also going to put a little bit of black. Just a little bit of black mark there. There is a bit of gold in the background. I wonder if that will show up too. Or am I just making a very big mess? With the little gold, I'm going to put on some little marks that might be like a stamen. I wanted to do two things. I wanted to draw further focus to here. I had that focus at the beginning and then totally lost it because I couldn't help myself and I worked on the background. I'm going to put in some line work. They're almost like patterns, and perhaps I'll add a little bit of colour here. The issue with adding pencil though is that I cannot take this out, especially like a gold pencil. So unlikely to be able to erase. I'm just enjoying adding little tiny marks. So there you have it. I've taken what was a really boring little poppy, unfinished, and given it some of the elements of some of the principles of art. I've added contrast, I've added a little bit of pattern, and I increased the amount of unity in colour. These are just principles, they're not rules, and you can apply them however you want them to be applied. There's just no rules about anything in art. And if you think it looks good, that's all that matters. If you think it's finished, that's all that matters. It's not about anyone else's opinion, it's completely about yours. So I'm just going to zoom out so that you can see the finished piece. There. Thanks, guys. When that's dry, I'm going to sign it. In fact, I will dry it now so I can sign it. So I went to art school, but I did not learn the 7 principles of art in art school. I learned it from Pinterest. I have heaps of boards on Pinterest. Well, actually, I used to. It's now just full of so many ads, I barely go on Pinterest. But I discovered the 7 principles of art on Pinterest, and I thought that they were absolutely fascinating. Yay, I love that. Okay. Yay, I love that. Okay.